Hi, everybody. This is day, I think, 1042. 1042 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And yeah, let's just say he didn't just vanish, something happened. I believe that he was forcibly removed from his barracks room. I believe that maybe uh, because law enforcement is involved in this crime, absolutely the CID is involved with the disappearance of our son, Richard Halliday. And I believe that he was forcibly removed, maybe under the disguise or the the privileges of law enforcement, and to force him out of his barracks room. I really believe that, where he was uh, tortured, brutally murdered, dismembered, and then his body parts placed in various locations. I absolutely, at this point, that's what all things are pointing to. We have hard facts that you will soon see come out. Hard facts, forensic evidence, forensic evidence that is absolutely backing us up. I'm going to go on here and make sure, since I'm back at, since I'm back home, to see if everything is working correctly. Because I have some very interesting news, additional news. There I am. Okay, some additional news to tell you about Richard. Well, he's been promoted. We asked for Freedom of Information, his archives, his records, and they're incomplete. So we're inquiring about what was left out that was not given to us. But what was given to us was interesting, because Richard has been promoted, and not once, but twice. You heard me right. The Army, the U.S. Army, because what the records are showing is that he's still in Delta Battery 143 ADA there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, which, begs the question, why is he then in Cold Case Quantico? Why is he in Cold Case Quantico if he is still part of Delta Battery, Diesel Battery 143 ADA? That's a good question, right? Yeah. So that was going on for a few months, that his case was being transferred over to Quantico, maybe to keep a closer grip on it or to ignore it. A good reason to, they were trying everything, because it's not a cold case. And no commander in their right mind would have allowed Richard's case to be put in to cold case under his command. No commander worth his weight, or who takes their duty to care for their service members, their soldiers, or their family members, would put Richard's case into cold case. No way. So, Lieutenant General Bernabe, he received an extra star to act so derelict, to so negligent, and he needs to be investigated. He needs to be arrested. He needs to be stripped of his uniform, stripped of his stars. He's just, and I hope that General Popis, I think that's our Popis, I hope that he gets the message that he has some leadership that are up to no good, absolutely up to no good. So Richard's case was transferred hand by hand. We're told that Special Agent Howell came down from Quantico to meet with Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe to receive Richard's case by hand, which is also, is that fraud, waste, and abuse? What happened to mail? What happened, to couriers? It's, because you have to pay TDY, right? You have to pay the TDY. It's a lot of money to bring down Special Agent Howell. Yet, this is what's very interesting before I get into the whole promoted thing, is Special Agent Howell with Senior Special Agent Viltry. Now, they're supposed to go and visit the crime scene. So, they're going to go back to El Paso. So we, if they're doing an investigation, if they're doing a summary, we still haven't received the summary. It's weeks old. Why aren't we receiving a summary? Well, I can tell you why, because we have some serious things going on behind the scenes. And now we have found out there's so much news that that I have to tell you. And the cold case, Richard being put into cold case, was in June of 2022. Okay, 2022. And not quite a year ago. And since then, in December of 2022, Richard was promoted. And again in April of 2023, this year, he was promoted a second time. And it's interesting. We're going to try to understand how that can happen, because normally the only time they would promote someone in cold case, especially suspected of being murdered, he is absolutely at this point 1,042 days suspected of being murdered. And so yeah. And then they're promoting him. They do that posthumously. Is that the right way to say that? That means after death. They will promote a soldier after death. And so I absolutely maintain that because we haven't gotten any official document with a letterhead, with a watermark, with a stamp, with signatures to say that these autopsy reports, these remains findings that we have been led to us, they're rightfully information that we should know, that we should have. And so this means that even in July of 2020, they knew that Richard had been murdered. They had found remains, according to our leads, at Red Rio Range in the end of July of 2020. And then again at the beginning of August 2020, more remains because Richard was dismembered. after he had been tortured. And this is then repeated in Mexico. It's repeated in Mexico that, we're told by Nadal Baim that this has been repeated in Mexico. And they had found Richard. He's dead. They were looking for Richard in Juarez. They found him. He's dead. Shh, shh. And then this has been repeated again at Training Area 244 on Fort Bliss. This area is called Kamal. Let me share my display here. See if I can share it. Will it not share? I guess it's not sharing. Let's see if I go like this. See, I'm just now back. No. Okay. I'll fix that glitch for tomorrow. But it is the mock, and I need to put up the maps again because we're looking for a fourth area, and I want to tell you where we're looking for the fourth set of remains. But area 244 is the mock Afghanistan village, Kamal Jabbar. And that is interesting because in December of 2020, we were given a call, a lead, to say, did you know that Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe is looking for Richard's remains there at Kamal Jabbar? Looking for Richard, but it was for Richard's remains. And so one of the autopsy reports falls in that time period and that date. So I think that is an accurate lead and also fits the pattern that we have discovered. So with all of that said, they promoted Richard. They do that after soldiers are dead. Richard is a whistleblower. He's a whistleblower and for crime in his unit. I don't think they wanted that to be out to the public because of what was going on with Vanessa Guillen. This is the same leadership, and they were in such trouble with Vanessa Guillen's case that they were like, I don't know if we can keep it together for another case of dismemberment because Vanessa Guillen was also dismembered. And, so also with Richard, they did something to him because they tried to make it so that his remains were unidentifiable. And so it was very gory. It is very gory. It is very sad. It is really disturbing. And they did not want this to get into the press and, and to be held accountable, which they should be held accountable. And I hope I have since, because I was Ron Paul, and Ron Paul doesn't like the death penalty because he doesn't feel like our courts are just, and he has he's 100% right, because this case has been meddled with and meddled with and meddled with, so I understand that. But I don't know. I think I've changed my mind. I think Texas has a lethal injection. I think the lethal injection should be absolutely on the table when all of this breaks. And when the perpetrators are brought to justice, the lethal injection should be on the table because of the level of crime is, and it's like a repeated. There's no stopping. It's just one crime after the other, and this is a threat to not only the military community there at Fort Bliss, not only to our family, but not only to El Paso, but also for Army readiness, for the world. If we're always allowing all of these cases of multiple crimes being committed and over and over and over again, and they get away with it, then more crimes are going to be, because there's no stopping them. They're never satisfied. They're never satisfied. It's one crime after the other. If it's not sexual assault on minors, on children, and child sex trafficking, and child sex pornography. Well, pornography. If it's not racketeering, if it's not selling military equipment, if it's not, over the border, that's so easy to do if you live in the El Paso area, or adjusting the books, being fraudulent. There's just so many ways that they keep on, weapon sales, things that don't belong to them, and stealing them and making money off of them. Things that criminals do over and over again. There's just no stopping them once they start. And so, I don't want to be a judge and jury on this. I just think it should be on the table. And I think we should have discovery, and we should hear what they find out. But for Richard, him being promoted not once but twice, in December and in April, December 2022 and April 2023, it shows you again that Yellow Interpol, that what was said about him, and I had some information I wanted to show you on the display, but it doesn't seem like my display is working, so I'll work on that. But I wanted to show you, and I think I can read it off. I wanted to show you this beautiful picture of my son. It says here, promoting a missing soldier, especially one who is presumed murder and classified as a cold case, is not likely. In this circumstance where Richard is missing and presumed murdered, it would be very odd for him to be promoted. But they do this for to honor those that have fallen after they're dead, and they promote them. So it's very interesting. Okay, so I have here Fort Bliss military police specialist Anthony Swafford, who I do not believe is in the military any longer. I don't think he's in the military. But at the time, during the fall of 2020, he posted a series of social media statements that presented false evidence and interfered with an investigation to which he was not assigned. And so I'm reading these notes that I wanted to show you, that I wanted to share with you, maybe tomorrow. His intent was to disparage and to undermine the investigation and the search into Richard Halliday, who is the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier and also a whistleblower. And so, he messed up. He messed up, and we're going to explain to you why this is so important in his statements, and they were important when I first read them. And we gave him an opportunity to explain himself, to help find Richard, to try to back up his statements, and he got angry. But he came on social media and tried to sabotage the search for our son, and then he gets angry when we're like, why are you doing that? We're looking for my little brother. We're looking for my son. We're looking for our friend. Why are you doing this? And he gets angry. And then we found out that he was a military police there at Fort Bliss. And so he messed up. And in his statements, military police specialist Anthony Swafford of Fort Bliss falsely claimed that Richard Halliday was engaged in criminal activity and subject to, and this is in bold, an open arrest warrant. He said he was wanted. Coming from a military police, that means it's an open arrest warrant. And however, a careful review confirmed that there was no illegal activity. I mean, my goodness, they just promoted him twice. He's a yellow Interpol, right? He's a yellow Interpol. So, there is no witnesses. There's no nothing that would confirm this illegal activity, and no arrest warrant, rendering military police specialist Anthony Swafford's statements false. So, additionally, he falsely alleged Richard Halliday in engaging with prostitution and physically harming multiple women, which was also debunked, which was also determined to be false. And he asserted that this information was a fact, and it was not a fact. It was a falsity, not a fact. And when questioned about these statements, he got pretty upset. He claimed to have personal knowledge, which was obtained from, get this, the Fort Bliss Military Police guard mount. From the guard mount, that's also in bold. And at one point, he even indicated that further revealing the source of the information about Richard Halliday from that guard mount, that's a senior leader standing at the change of shift for the military police there at Fort Bliss, that that would put his family in danger. That's what Anthony Swafford said. His family would be in danger if he talked about Richard Halliday's disappearance and got involved in that. He would be put in danger, his family, which wow. So this is a big deal, and we need to know who that guard mount senior leader is that told him that. And we have given ample time. We've called out for that. I've said multiple times, Anthony Swafford could easily tell us who that leader is. Now, that promulgated this false information. But you see, Anthony Swafford has no way out of this because he's an adult male. He's a trained military police. He absolutely knows the Constitution, doesn't he? That you're innocent until proven guilty, that you should have a soldier's six. I mean, that's the military code of conduct. That you should have there's six, that you should be an army of one, be all you can be. And yet he messed up. He interfered with an investigation and more. That something that he wasn't even assigned to. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to talk about was the sheriff's information. We received quite a bit from the sheriffs there at Sarasota in Florida, because we were living in Sarasota, Florida at the time that Richard went missing. And they don't have a warrant, y'all. They don't have a warrant. They cannot produce a warrant for coming to our home, searching our premises, even an arrest warrant. There's nothing there. And this is also goes to the yellow Interpol, the designation of died while missing. You don't have to produce a body if you designate someone died while missing. Okay, you don't have to produce a body. And, You can't have a federal warrant out for someone's arrest when they didn't do anything wrong. And Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe tried to talk us out of designating Richard as a Dust One missing soldier, CONUS Dust One missing soldier. We call it the Vanessa Guillen First Absent Soldier now, because, CONUS Dust One, people don't understand what that is. But he tried to talk us out of getting that done, because he said then there wouldn't be an arrest warrant on Richard. Well, where is the arrest warrant? Where is it? There's no arrest warrant. And he's a yellow Interpol. If there was an arrest warrant, if he was a deserter, instead of dead while missing, he would have had a red Interpol, a wanted. They would be actively looking for him, but they weren't. And so I think that is really, really big, information, important information. And also, I will tell you that the paperwork that was given back to us by the sheriffs there in Sarasota, that was also incomplete. So we're paying trillions of dollars for all these excuses and incomplete paperwork. Okay, no record. They can destroy a soldier's life, and they don't have to keep proper paperwork. That's really crazy. So, and I want to also talk about Attorney General Ken Paxton, and I have here. See if you can.
Attorney General in America. Others, a criminal deserving removal from office.
I can try.
He has a national reputation for organizing Republican attorneys general to push back against federal flaws and follies and failures. Some say
okay, so you can kind of hear that, and I'll play it tomorrow. Where you can see it, but Ken Paxton is being targeted. He's being retaliated against for doing his job. Y'all. Just like Richard was targeted for doing his job, he is being targeted for doing his job. And they don't want him to get to the bottom of what he is discovering in cases that he's involved in. And just like Richard, they don't want people to know what Richard was exposing. That's why the Child Protective Services has still not produced the FOIA request that we have. So that will we're working on that too. We are made the everything for our son's case. The chief investigators, the staff, the media, we're made everything for our son's case. And, it seems like, look, we have hard facts, forensic evidence that will be, we already shared so much of it, but we'll share even more. And then we have a concerted effort by law enforcement to smear Richard, along with the command to smear Richard, to cover up, to help. That was one asymmetric warfare tactic to, this TRADOC people and all that, to hinder and sabotage the search for Richard, the investigation into what happened to Richard. And also we have Soto, everything leading back to Soto and Soto's conflicts of interest with Special Agent Tavita Nusa, who was assigned to Richard's case, who had given access to Richard's file, to Leilani Hart, who is the mother of First Lieutenant Dallas Hart, who is serving at the same time in the same command as Richard Halliday, and part of a family that was sexually assaulting a 7-year-old in Leilani Hart's master bedroom by multiple members of the family. And First Lieutenant Dallas Hart is reported by his mother in a notarized CID complaint that went to the FBI level that he was engaged in an incestuous relationship with his brother while he was in uniform, and had child pornography for long periods of time. That's not my words. That's Leilani Hart's words. Leilani Hart's reports against her son. And, she was given access, and she was bragging about running the CID and bragging about Mexico too. And we, have known that my husband's report to Mexico was questionable because there was nothing being done, and now we have confirmation that it was absolutely not reported like he had said. They took advantage of our lack of, or not, virtually no knowledge of the Spanish language, and somehow, some way, they interfered with Rob's report in Mexico. And, so we're working many different things, but we have the warrants on our house non-existent. There's no warrants to search our home. We have the civil rights and tampering into an investigation done by a military police specialist, Anthony Swafford, who's is just following orders. He's just a specialist from the guard mount, but he messed up. He should know better. And then we have Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is also, believe it or not, connected to our case. He's connected to our case along with others in the civilian world, that we are working behind the scenes to get to the bottom, find Richard, and at this point, it really is in the morgues. It really is, give us Richard's remains. We want Richard's remains, every last piece of him. And, there's really very little hope of that, because he was, spread across many different locations, and he was laid there for long periods of time. So we'll take what we can get, and that's really what I wanted to say to everyone tonight. If you have any questions, I will be glad to answer them. It doesn't look like we do. Another thing about this is we are going to work hard to organize mothers of missing, murdered, and maligned soldiers. We are already a coalition, and so we want to organize it a little better. And it's something we just started, but we need to act as a coalition to get the impact, to get the changes that we need, that will also help drive them into doing the right thing, which is to give us Richard's remains, and also to hold those that did this gruesome crime accountable, and those who covered up accountable, and those that, the DOD at the highest levels, they committed crimes against humanity during 2020 and 2021 and onwards. And so if they're going to commit crimes against humanity at that level, of course, they wouldn't mind, committing more crimes. It's just with leaders like this who needs enemies. They have no character. So I will be back tomorrow, God willing, back on with more information. You wouldn't believe it. And as we're getting all of our FOIAs answered now and they're coming in, I'll let you know. Please share this, and God bless you, and I'll be back tomorrow.